Well now, are you settled? If so, then let's do our little trick. Keep your eyes gently open, not searching, just resting, and let the room fade into something softer around you. Let the darkness take its place without you trying to study it, and you'll find that the longer you try to stay awake, the sooner sleep will come. Let yourself sink into the bed completely, allow it to hold you still, as though staying put is the easiest thing in the world. Breathe slow, don't move, and if you hear a faint sliding sound across the floor near the foot of your bed, pay it no mind. As long as you remain still, it won't cross towards you. Now, let's begin tonight's stories. The bath was already filled when the fire began to die. Water sat level with the rim of the tin, holding the low light of the cottage in a dull, oval reflection. The small room smelled faintly of soap and smoke, peat smoke. Outside, reeds shifted along the road to the lake and then fell still again. For a long time, nothing moved. Then, a single bubble rose from the center of the bath and broke the surface with a soft pop. Then another followed, a third. The water trembled once, and her head came up through it. Moira Kelleher drew in air slowly, deliberately, and pushed her wet hair back from her face. Water streamed down over her shoulders and along her collarbone. She closed her eyes and let the breath settle, as if testing how close she had come. She had counted to 47 that time. She always counted. She sat there a moment longer, palms resting along the rim of the bath, breathing steady, measuring the return of air. The chill of the water sharpened her. It marked the boundary cleanly, the exact place where silence ended and breath resumed. She lowered herself again. The water closed over her face, and the cottage vanished. Underneath, the world narrowed, weight, pressure, stillness. She counted 1, 2, 3. The numbers steadied her. They gave shape to the dark. They gave her ownership of it. And when she rose again, she didn't gasp. She inhaled through her nose and wiped water from her eyes, almost disappointed. The lake always came to her when she did this. Not in sight, in control. The lake lay half-mile from her cottage, ringed by weeds and broken stone walls that had sagged with age. On Sundays, villagers gathered along its banks in quiet knots, boots sinking into damp soil, hats twisting between fingers. Moira stood waist-deep in the water, skirts pinned high, her hair pulled back tight from her face. She held her small, leather-bound Bible against her chest until the family stepped forward. She wasn't ordained. No one asked her to be. The priest had left years ago and hadn't returned. A traveling revivalist once passed through and spoke of immersion, of full surrender to water, of washing sin entirely. He left pamphlets and fervour behind him. Moira gave that fervour structure. "The bodies must go fully under," she would say, voice carrying clearly over the lake. "All of it. The water must take you completely." Parents nodded, children shifted uneasily. She took the first boy's hands gently and guided him forward. He was 8, perhaps 9, narrow shoulders, hair stuck to his forehead with mist. "You must trust," she told him. He nodded because there was no other option. She placed her palm behind his head and her other hand across his chest. The lake lapped softly around them. "Now, Close your eyes. He did. She lowered him backward. The water sealed over his face. His fingers tightened around her wrists immediately. His body arched once beneath the surface. She held him there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His legs kicked. 6, 7. The ripples spread outward in rings. 8, 9, 10. And there it was, the moment, the point at which struggle changed, the second when the child stopped fighting calmness and surrendered to panic. That second belonged to her. She could feel it in her hands, the shift, the small yielding, the silent plea for air. She alone decided when that plea would be answered. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. She lifted him. He broke the surface, coughing violently, clutching at her shoulders while his mother waded forward in tears and relief. He fights, Moira said calmly. The spirit resists before it yields. The boy shivered on the bank, wrapped in wool. His eyes never left her. That was the part she never spoke aloud, the authority of it, the fine edge between breath and none, the exact count where life leaned forward, waiting for permission. Each baptism followed that same pattern. Each time she lingered at the boundary. No one had died. One girl had fainted the previous spring, rising limp for a breath before coughing water into the reeds. Then there were mutters after that. A father had asked, carefully, if perhaps immersion had been too long. You doubt the cleansing? Moira asked him quietly, meeting his eyes without wavering. He looked away at first. Faith required firmness. Moira gave them firmness. In the evenings, she returned to the cottage alone. The bath ritual began the first winter after she started baptizing. At first, she told herself she was curious. She wanted to understand the silence from beneath the water. She wanted to feel what they felt. She lowered herself into the bath and held her breath. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Underwater, sound dulled to nothing. The ceiling dissolved into a wavering blur. There was only the count and the pressure of water against skin. But soon, curiosity shifted. She found herself staying longer. 40, 45, 50. The first time she reached a full minute, she rose slowly and smiled at a reflection in the trembling water. She had crossed the boundary herself, and after that, she chased it. Not the silence, the decision, the knowledge that she could end the count whenever she chose. One afternoon at the lake, a girl of 7 stood before her, solemn and pale. The mother held a shawl tight around her own shoulders. Be brave, the mother whispered. The water felt colder that day. Moira guided the girl in. Trust, she said again. She lowered her. The surface closed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The girl's fingers dug into her sleeve. 8, 9, 10. The small body jerked. 11, 12, 13. The moment hovered. She felt the surrender. 14, 15, 16, 17. She lifted her. The girl came up coughing hard, water spilling from her mouth. Her mother gathered her quickly, weeping. Moira watched the lake settle. For a heartbeat longer than comfort allowed, the water seemed reluctant to smooth itself again. She ignored it. That night she filled the bath to the rim. The cottage felt narrow, the air heavy against the stone walls. The fire burned low, embers glowing. She undressed and stepped in. She lowered herself until only her face remained above the water. She took one steady breath and went under. The shift came without warning. The bottom of the bath didn't meet her back. Her fingers reached downward and sank into soft grit. She opened her eyes. The porcelain was gone, dark, spread in every direction. She pushed herself upward instinctively. Her hand met only water. She kicked again, harder. The surface didn't arrive. Light filtered faintly from somewhere above, green and distant, like sun through deep lake water. Her hair floated around her face. Her count began automatically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She swam upward again. The water thickened around her limbs. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The number slipped. 20, 6, 31, 4, 48, 17. The sequence tangled in her mind. She tried to steady it. 1, 2, 3, no, 25, 9. Her thoughts scattered like leaves in current. The count that had always obeyed her fractured into fragments. Shapes moved below, small bodies suspended in the dark. Children, eyes open, hair drifting slowly in the water. Their limbs hung loose as though caught forever in the moment before release. They didn't trash, they didn't reach wildly, they simply hovered, watching, and one turned slowly toward her, the boy from her first baptism. His gaze was steady. She tried to push upward again. The surface remained far above, unmoving. 30, 3, 19, 5. Her mind struggled to hold a line. A small hand brushed her ankle, not grasping, just resting there. Another touched her wrist. The contact was calm, measured, the same way she held them. Her count broke apart completely. 10, 40, 77, 63. She twisted and kicked. More hands closed around her, not violent, but firm. Her body tilted downward, drawn slowly toward the dark slit below. The lake bed rose to meet her. Clouds of mud lifted around her face. She opened her mouth to shout, and water filled it. The count dissolved into nothing. The children didn't struggle. They simply held, and they decided. In the morning, smoke didn't rise from her chimney. By noon, a neighbor walked the path to her cottage and found her door unlatched and water spilling out of it, just trickling. When they went inside, they saw the bath was filled to the brim. The water was still. A single bubble rose and broke quietly at the center. Another followed. The neighbor stepped closer. Moira's face floated just beneath the surface, eyes open, hair spread gently around her. The water barely covered her. Her body lay flat against the tin. There were no marks on her, no overturned furniture, no sign of force, only stillness. They buried her on a hill overlooking the lake. Some said she had pushed too far in her devotions. Others said it was a test she failed. The neighboring priest spoke carefully over her grave. For a time, baptisms ceased. The lake returned to its usual calm. And then, one spring morning, a traveling preacher arrived and spoke again of full immersion and surrender to water. A family stepped forward, eagerly with their son. The preacher waded into the lake. He lowered the boy. The surface sealed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, He pulled upward, but the boy didn't rise easily. The water held him for a second, then another. Small bubbles rose. The preacher pulled harder, straining, boots slipping in the mud beneath him. The lake resisted. Then, with a violent wrench, the boy broke the surface, coughing and crying. The gathered villagers stared at the water in silence. Beneath the surface, something moved. A pale shape drifted just beyond sight. The shape of a woman. The lake had claimed one who lingered too long. And yet it remembered the hands that decided when breath would return. John Burke had driven for 3 hours for a place he'd never seen because it was easier than sitting in his flat listening to his own thoughts do laps. He'd told people he was getting out for a bit. That was the safe version. The real version was simple. He'd grown up on a diet of old stories and half-jokes that didn't sound like jokes when the room went quiet. Stories his grandmother told when she was in the mood. Stories she told when she wasn't. He didn't come down here chasing ghosts. He came down here chasing a feeling, a scrap of belonging, a road that looked familiar even when it shouldn't. The west coast took the last of the day off him, mile by mile, wet stone, wind that never stopped, fields chopped into squares by old walls. He passed sheep that didn't even lift their heads as he went by, as if he was another grey thing in a grey world. By the time he found the little pull-in, the light had flattened. The sky sat low and heavy, the kind of sky that made you feel watched, even when you were alone. He parked, he killed the engine, he sat there a moment with both hands on the steering wheel. He could have turned around and gone home. He could have done the sensible thing. He got out instead and felt the air hit his face like a wet cloth. The phone box was up the road a bit, set back from the verge like it had been politely placed there and politely forgotten. Not a red London thing like you saw in tourist shops. This one was the old Irish sort, green and cream, paint long gone dull, windows clouded with salt and thyme. The door had a crack in it that ran from the handle down, like the box itself had tried to split and walk away. He laughed quietly because, of course, there'd be a phone box. Of course. His grandmother had once said, "There was a box out there and you'd hear it ring sometimes and you'd keep your head down and keep walking." She said it the way you'd say, "Don't put your hand on a hot stove." Not dramatic, just final. He'd asked her, "Did you ever answer it?" She looked at him like he'd asked if she ever swallowed seawater on purpose. So, when he saw it now, standing on its own by a bend in the road, he felt that old itch rise up. The writer part of him, the part always starving for an idea, for a line, for something that wasn't his own tired life. He walked toward it with his hood up, shoes sinking a bit into the verge. The box didn't look inviting. It looked like it belonged to a different Ireland, an Ireland that had no business still being here in 2025. Then the bell inside it rang. It wasn't a gentle ring. It wasn't a soft, nostalgic sound. It was sharp and alive, like someone had just put a fresh wire through it. John stopped dead. He stood staring at the box. He listened. The phone rang again. His first thought was that it was some prank, some hidden speaker, some modern experience thing, except there was nobody around. There was no cars, no hikers, no kids with cameras, just wind and road and the sea somewhere off to his left, pounding itself into the dark. The phone rang again. He moved without deciding to. He crossed the last few steps and put his hand on the door handle. The metal was cold enough to sting. The door stuck at first, then gave with a reluctant pull. The smell inside was old dust and damp plastic and the faint tang of something metallic. The phone hung there, black and heavy, receiver vibrating with each ring like it was impatient. John lifted it. "Hello?" he said. and his voice sounded too loud in the small space. For a second there was only breath on the other end, fast and wet, like someone trying not to cry. "Hello," he said again, quieter this time. "Can you hear me?" A small sound came down the line, a whimper half swallowed back, and then the line went dead. John froze with the receiver to his ear. He looked at the phone as if it might explain itself, and he listened again, and there was nothing. He hung it up slowly. He stepped out of the box and stood in the verge, heart going faster than it had any right to. He took out a cigarette, rolled it with hands that didn't feel like his own, lit it, and tried to pretend this was normal. The wind tugged at the flame. The smoke tasted like damp paper. He took one drag, then another, and the phone rang again. He stared at the box like it had insulted him. The ring came again, steady, patient. He flicked the cigarette away and went back in. He lifted the receiver. "Hello," he said, and he was trying to keep his voice calm like he was talking to a frightened dog. "Is anyone there? Hello." This time the voice came straight away, a child's voice, small, shaking, trying to be brave and failing.
"Please help me."
John swallowed nothing. He just stood there, jaw tight, listening. "All right," he said. "All right, I'm listening. What's your name?"
"Dolly."
"Dolly, how's it going? How old are you?"
I'm 7.
She said, and there was a panic underneath it, like she'd rehearsed the answer 1,000 times and still didn't trust it.
"I'm 7. I'm not supposed to be out. He'll...
"Who's he?" John asked. "Dolly, slow down. Tell me who."
He has me trapped. He has me in a room. There's a lock. I managed to get out and I found a phone. But if he catches me on the phone, he'll kill me."
John's mouth went dry. He pressed his free hand against the wall of the box, feeling the vibration of the wind through the old metal. "Listen to me, Dolly," he said. "You did the right thing. You're doing the right thing right now. Where are you?"
"I don't know. I don't know where the house is. I've never been here before. It's not my house. He brought me here."
Okay, John said slowly. Tell me about yourself, Dolly. Anything. Where do you live? Who do you live with?"
"I live with Mum and Dad and my brothers, 2 of them, and my birthday is June the 6th, 1948.
June 6th, 1948. John went very still. He didn't speak right away. His brain tried to place what he'd heard in a sensible box. It didn't fit. 1948, he said carefully.
"Yes, please, don't leave the phone. I'm scared."
John stared out through the cloudy glass at the road and the empty fields and the world that was supposed to be real. He couldn't keep the edge out of his voice now. "Dolly, what year is it where you were, do you think?"
I don't know.
She said, and she sounded genuinely confused by the question.
It's just today. It's just today, and he's coming back."
The fear in her voice was raw. It put pictures in John's head he didn't want. "All right, listen to me. I'm going to help you."
"No, don't go. Don't hang up. Please don't leave me."
"I won't hang up," John promised. "But I need to get to you. I need to find you."
"How?"
she whispered, and there was a faint sound on her end like a door creaking somewhere far away. John's mind ran fast. He thought of calling the Gardaí. He thought of going down the road to find a house. He thought of how stupid he'd sound trying to explain any of this to anyone. "Dolly," he said, "I need you to tell me what you can see. I need details. What does the room look like?"
I can't."
"Just try. You're doing brilliantly. Describe one thing at a time."
I'm in a small room. There's a bed. The bed it's narrow and the blanket is all scratchy. There's a smell like paraffin, I suppose. There's a window, but it's high and I can't reach it.
John nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Good. Now keep going.
There's a wardrobe, a big one, and there's a little table, and on the table there's a dish with matches in it.
John felt the hair lift along his arms. Okay, Dolly, I'm going to do something and I need you to stay with me. Don't hang up. Don't put the receiver down. Hold it close. Can you do that?
Yes.
John looked at the phone in his hand, old and solid and wrong. Dolly, he said, I can't help you if I don't leave this box. Do you understand? A small sob.
No, I am scared.
I know, I'm scared too, but we can do this. There was a sound on her end now, clearer, footsteps, slow. Dolly went silent, breath held. John's heart hammered. Dolly? A whisper, barely audible.
He's downstairs. I can hear him.
John's mind snapped. Listen to me. Lock whatever you can lock. Hide if you have to. Keep the phone for now, but if he comes, you might have to go back into the room, just so he knows nothing's wrong.
I'm scared.
John gripped the receiver so hard his fingers hurt. Dolly, trust me. Then, in a strange, calm voice, like the fear had stepped aside for something older, Dolly whispered.
All right.
The air inside the phone box changed. John didn't know how else to describe it. The space felt tighter, like the box had shrunk around him. The sound of the wind outside dulled. Even the smell shifted, less damp, more electric, like a storm about to break. John opened his mouth to speak again, and he felt himself step outside of himself. There was no slow fade, no dreamy sliding away. It was abrupt, like being yanked by a collar. 1 second he was standing in the phone box, holding the receiver, and the next he was standing beside himself, looking at his own back. His body was still there, still holding the phone to its ear, still breathing, but John, whatever part of him was watching, was now on the other side of the glass, out on the road. He spun around, stumbling on nothing, and the world hit him wrong. The colors were different, the air was heavier, the horizon looked closer. The phone box was still there behind him, but the road wasn't the same road. It was narrower, rougher, no white lines, no modern tar. The verge was wilder. The fields looked less fenced, less tamed. He turned slowly, panic rising. A cart rolled past and wooden wheels pulled by a horse, and the man driving it didn't look at him, didn't react, just clucked at the horse and carried on. Down the road, smoke lifted from chimneys that weren't there a minute ago. John's mouth opened. He heard his own voice through the phone, faint, like it was coming from far away. His body was still talking to Dolly, still promising he was there. John staggered toward the village that didn't exist in the modern landscape. It felt like walking into a memory you weren't allowed to have. People moved about, ordinary as anything. Women with baskets, men in caps, a boy running with a loaf under his arm, a dog sniffing at a ditch. No one looked at John. No one stepped around him. They walked as if he was air. He raised his hand in front of a woman carrying a pail. She walked straight through him, and John felt nothing, no contact, no cold, just the knowledge that he wasn't solid. His breath came fast. He forced it down. He needed to think. Dolly was in this world, somewhere near, trapped in a house, a man coming back. John put his hand out in front of him like he could steady himself, and he spoke quietly, more to himself than anything. All right, keep this together. He listened. At first he heard only village noise, voices, a hammer on wood, a baby crying somewhere. Then, faintly, like a thread, he heard Dolly's voice through the phone, still connected, still running.
I can hear you,
Dolly whispered.
I can hear you talking to me. Are you still there?
John answered out loud, though he didn't know if it mattered. I'm here, Dolly. Then to himself, wherever here is. Back in the phone box, his physical body was speaking these words into the phone. His ghost self if you can call it that, forced himself to focus. Dolly had given him details, a paraffin smell, a high window, a little table with a dish of matches. None of that pointed to a location. He walked through the village, slowly, eyes scanning. He passed a shop with sacks outside, a pub with a half door, a small chapel. He moved toward the edge of the village because the kind of man who trapped a child didn't do it in the middle of the main street. He did it somewhere where nobody asked questions. Dolly's voice came again, urgent.
He's coming up. I can hear him coming up the stairs.
John's whole body tightened, even though it wasn't a body anymore. Dolly, he said, look around. Is there anything you can see out the window? Anything at all?
I can see sky and the top of a wall and a tree, a big tree. It's bare, like it's dead.
A dead tree in summer. John looked around. Most of the trees here were small, wind-warped things, hawthorn and scrub, and then he saw it. On the far side of a field, beyond a low stone wall, stood a big tree with no leaves, branches like black fingers against the sky. It didn't belong. Near it sat a house set back from the road, half hidden by a rise in the ground. The place looked ordinary enough from a distance, whitewashed walls, a small upstairs window, but there was something about it that made John's skin want to crawl, even without skin. He ran. He didn't have to worry about fences. He went straight through a gate and across a wet field that didn't soak him. He crossed a ditch without jumping it. He moved fast, driven by the sound of Dolly's fear.
I can see the door. I can see his shadow.
Stay quiet, John said. Stay still, but if you hear him coming any closer, you're going to have to put that phone down and hide. He reached the house and stopped by the front wall, listening. He could hear a man inside, a heavy movement, a mutter, a drawer opening. John tried the door on instinct, even though he wasn't solid. His hand went through the handle. He swore quietly. He went around the side. There was a back door, a small yard, a coal shed. The smell of paraffin was stronger here. The place had that closed-in stink of someone living mean and alone. A sound came from upstairs, a child's whimper, strangled back. John looked up at the upstairs window Dolly had described. High, too high for a child. The glass was grimy. John moved through the wall like it wasn't there, and that was the moment he truly believed he was somewhere he didn't understand. Inside, the air was warm and stale. He stood in a narrow hallway. The wallpaper was old. A picture of a young priest hung crooked on one wall, watching him with a stern, painted face. He heard the man again, in the kitchen perhaps. He followed the sound, careful, though there was no need, habit. He passed a sitting room with a cold hearth and a chair pushed up close to it like someone had sat there for hours doing nothing but listening. A radio sat on the shelf, silent. In the kitchen, a man stood with his back to John, pouring something from a bottle into a mug. He was broad-shouldered. His hair was dark and damp, as if he'd been outside. His hands looked thick and strong. John felt a surge of rage. He wanted to hit him, he wanted to grab him, he wanted to do something, but he couldn't. The man lifted the mug to his mouth, drank, and wiped his lips with the back of his hand like he had all the time in the world, and then he spoke to himself, low. 7 today, is it? John went cold. He moved toward the stairs. The stairs creaked under the man's weight as he started climbing. John shot up ahead of him, passing through the steps like smoke. Upstairs, there were 2 doors, one slightly open, one was shut. John moved toward the shut one and went straight through. The room matched Dolly's description so perfectly it made him want to be sick. A narrow bed with a scratchy blanket, a wardrobe, a little table with a dish of matches, a high window, the smell of paraffin thick here like it lived in the walls. Dolly sat on the floor by the bed, holding the receiver to her ear with both hands. Her face was wet, her hair was messy. She looked small in that room, too small for what was happening. Her eyes were fixed on the door, twisting the sleeve of her jumper in her fingers like it was some sort of nervous reaction. Something to keep her calm, something to keep her steady. John moved toward her. He couldn't touch her, but he crouched near her anyway, like being close mattered. The handle moved. The door opened. The man stepped in. Dolly flinched but didn't scream. She held her breath, eyes wide, receiver shaking in her hand. "What are you doing with that phone?" he asked. Dolly's mouth trembled. She tried to speak and couldn't. The man took one step into the room. John's body, back in 2025, spoke into the receiver, voice firm. "Dolly, stay with me." The man paused. He stared at Dolly like he heard something he shouldn't have. "Who's that?" he said. "Who's that you're talking to?" Dolly shook her head, small and desperate. The man moved again, faster. He reached toward her. John did the only thing he could think of. He threw himself at the man. He didn't hit him, he didn't grab him, but the air in the room shifted as John passed through him, and the man recoiled like he walked into a cold current. He swore. He backed away half a step, eyes narrowing. The lamp on the table flickered once, just once, as if something had touched it. The man looked around, unsettled. What's that? Who's there?" John did it again. He moved through him harder, forcing whatever presence he was into the man's space. The man staggered, slamming a hand against the wardrobe as if he had lost balance. Dolly stared, confused, hopeful, but terrified. The man's eyes went wild for a second. He took a step back toward the door, as if he suddenly didn't trust the room. Someone's here. Is it a ghost? No. The man backed into the hallway, still staring into the room like it might bite him, and John surged forward again, forcing him further back, away from Dolly. The man stumbled down the stairs, hand gripping the rail like he was drunk. He looked over his shoulder, eyes wide, and ran into the kitchen. John turned to Dolly. "Now," he said, though he didn't know if she could hear him directly. "Now, Dolly, move." Dolly stood up fast, legs shaking. She kept the receiver to her ear. John's body on the line said, Go now." Dolly didn't wait. She ran for the front door. The man tried to chase, roaring, charging after her, and John threw himself at him again and again, each time buying a second, stealing his balance, stealing his certainty. Dolly burst out through the front door and into the yard. The dead tree stood in the field beyond like a warning. John ran with her. The village, which had looked ordinary and calm, shifted as Dolly burst into it. People turned, heads snapped round, voices rose. A woman saw Dolly's torn dress, her bloody feet, her wild eyes, and the woman's face changed. "What in God's name?" she started, grabbing Dolly. Men came running, and someone shouted. The man from the house reached the edge of the village and stopped dead, seeing the crowd. His face went blank, and then it went calculating. He turned and ran the other way. John watched him go, furious. He tried to follow, and he felt something pulling him backward, like a hook in the ribs. The village blurred. The air thickened. He heard Dolly's voice in his ear, faint. "Don't leave, please." John fought it. He tried to stay. The pull got stronger. The world snapped. He was back inside the phone box, or rather, he was back behind himself, watching his own body stand rigid with the receiver to his ear. There was nothing on the line now, just a low, dead hiss. John felt himself slam back into his body like someone shoving him into a coat. His knees buckled. He grabbed the wall of the box to steady himself. After what felt like a long time of trying to calm himself, he stepped out of the box and stood on the verge, looking down at the village as if the village might still be there if he stared hard enough. It wasn't. It was the modern road again, the modern fields, the same grey sky, the same sea sound, the same empty stretch of nowhere. He looked at his hands. They were just hands, no glow or smoke, no sign of what had just happened. He made a smirk, a short, broken sound, and then his face fell serious again. He got in his car and drove back without music. He didn't ring anyone. He didn't tell anyone. What would he say? That he answered a ringing phone box and walked into 1955? He went straight to his grandmother's place the next day because there was nowhere else to put what was in his head. She lived in a small bungalow now, cared for by a woman who came in each day. John's mother wasn't there. It was just the carer and his grandmother and the quiet hum of television turned down low. His grandmother sat in her chair by the window, a blanket over her knees. Her hair was white, her eyes were still sharp when they landed on him. "Well," she said, voice dry, "look at what the tide dragged in." John tried to smile, but it came out wrong. The carer, a kind woman in her 40s, brought tea and biscuits. She set the tray down and fussed over his grandmother with the gentle authority of someone used to stubborn old souls. "Nice few biscuits for you there now too, Dolly. Eat up." Dolores Closky. That's the name he'd always known her by. His grandmother took the cup and saucer in both hands and her fingers shook. Tea slipped over the saucer and onto her skirt. She made a small sound of annoyance, embarrassed by it, and she eased the cup and saucer down onto the table, and without thinking she caught the end of her sleeve and twisted it nervously between her fingers. John felt his stomach drop. It wasn't the spill, it wasn't the shaking, it was the exactness of the movement. The same small, desperate habit he'd pictured in that upstairs room. A child trying to keep quiet. A child trying to keep control of her own hands while she held a receiver to her ear and listened for footsteps on the stairs. He couldn't believe what his mind had managed to assemble. A green and cream phone box on a lonely road. A child's voice on a line that shouldn't exist. A name she didn't go by anymore. A date she'd carried. And a story she sometimes told, but never laid claim to. And then she looked at him, as if she knew, as if it had all come flooding back. His grandmother's fingers finally loosened on the sleeve, but she didn't look away, and outside the window the wind moved across the grass, and the lights stayed flat and colourless, as if the day refused to react to what had just been understood. John sat very still. His grandmother sat very still. And the room held its silence, the way a hand holds a secret. Ulick Gallagher had never liked a silent house. Silence in a workshop was useful. It let him hear the scrape of a file across brass and the faint shift in pitch when a gear sat wrong in its cradle. Silence in a home was different. It stretched through the rooms and pressed against the walls. It reminded him of spaces that had once been filled. His house had been quiet for 12 years. He didn't speak of the boy. He didn't keep the small booths. He didn't allow the neighbours to lower their voices when they mentioned loss. What he did instead was build. The workshop behind the house thickened with metal and oil and smoke. Shelves bowed with fittings, drawers stuck from the weight of screws. A long bench ran beneath the window where the light fell strongest. He had clocks of every size, from pocket pieces to tall standing cases that rang the hour whether he wished it or not. Young Charlie Keating had been coming to the workshop for 2 summers. The boy was quick with questions and quicker with hands. He would sit on an upturned crate and watch Ulick seat a spring or polish a wheel. "What does that do?" Charlie would ask. "It keeps time honest," Ulick would reply, without looking up. Charlie would grin at that and pass him whatever tool was nearest. He had a way of holding things steady. He listened. He didn't speak to fill the air. On certain evenings, Ulick would pour 2 cups of tea and place one near the edge of the bench. Charlie would sip it too quickly and burn his tongue, though he never complained. "You'll take over the clocks one day," Ulick said once. Charlie laughed. "Dad says I can't even keep the hens in their coop." Ulick didn't laugh. He tightened a screw and let the remark pass. The house was less silent on those days. It was after one such evening when Charlie had left and the yard had fallen back into stillness that Ulick stood by the furnace and said aloud, "A house shouldn't sit without movement." The word surprised him. He hadn't meant to speak. He set aside the strip of steel in his hand and pulled a sheet of paper from the drawer. He drew carefully, a frame first, a rib cage of brass struts, hinged shoulders, elbows with layered joints, a central chamber wide enough for a small boiler. He pressed hard enough that the pencil bit into the page. By lamplight, he shaped the face. It wouldn't resemble a man exactly. The lines were too smooth for that. No, a porcelain plate over a brass skull. Gentle dimples near the mouth, eyes set wide, clear and round. He leaned back and studied the drawing. "You'll do," he said. He named it before he built it. Clogán, a little bell, a little clock. He spoke the name again and felt it settle into the room. The next morning he needed fuel. The coal in the shed wouldn't carry him through what he needed. He stepped to the road and found young Charlie perched on the ditch wall, carving at a stick with a pocket knife. "Charlie," Ulick called. Charlie hopped down and wiped his hands on his trousers. "How would you like to earn a few pennies?" Ulick asked. Charlie nodded. "A few pennies would be nice." "Then bring us some dry timber." Charlie didn't question it. He was used to errands. He was used to Ulick asking for odd things. He returned near dusk with a bundle of planks over his shoulder. "Very good. Where'd you get it?" Ulick asked, testing the grain. Da had it spare," Ulick said, eyes steady. Ulick nodded and paid him. Inside the workshop, he split the planks and fed them to the furnace. The wood caught fast. Flames rose higher than expected and spat sparks that flared pale before settling. The pressure gauge in the boiler ticked upward quicker than usual. Ulick adjusted the draft. "Timber's bone dry," he muttered. He didn't think more of it. The first weeks were steady and exacting. He built the frame from brass rods and steel plates, fastening each joint with care. The rib cage curved clean and strong, pistons seated in the thighs, gears nested within the shoulders. He fitted the small boiler into the center and connected the pipes through the hips and down into the legs. Charlie visited during those weeks. "What's it for?" he asked one afternoon, staring at the half-built torso. "For company," Ulick said. Charlie blinked. "It'll talk." "It'll move," Ulick replied. "That'll be enough." Charlie ran a hand along the brass. "Looks like it's smiling." "It'll always smile," Ulick said. He carved the face plate late one night. The porcelain plate arrived wrapped in cloth. He sanded the edges and painted faint colour into the cheeks. The mouth curved upward, steady and fixed. When the body was complete, he bolted the face into place and sealed the chest plate. Clogán sat in a wooden chair, hands resting on its knees. Even without steam, it seemed attentive. Charlie stood beside Ulick, studying it. "Will it know my name?" the boy asked. "It'll know what I tell it," Ulick answered. Charlie gave a small nod. He left it seated that night. The furnace burned low, the boiler cooled. In the morning, he entered the workshop with a cup of tea and stopped at the door. Clogán was standing, not leaning, not tipped forward, standing upright in the center of the room. Ulick set the cup down slowly. He walked around it once. The feet were planted squarely, the joints aligned. He placed his hand against the chest plate. Warm. The furnace was grey with ash. No fresh timber had been added. Ulick stood back, confused. "I'm working so much I don't know what I've been doing." "Well, at least you found your balance." He didn't call Charlie that day. In the days that followed, Clogán moved when spoken to. At first, the movements were deliberate and careful. The head turned in small increments, the arms lifted with a soft hiss, the fingers closed around tools with measured precision. "Bring me the owl hammer there," Ulick said. Clogán walked 3 steps and placed it in his hand. "Good lad yourself," Ulick replied. Steam vented softly from the chest plate. It stoked the furnace without being told. It carried coal from the scuttle and fed the fire with even rhythm. It followed Ulick from the workshop to the house and stood in the corner of the kitchen while he ate. Charlie returned one afternoon and knocked at the door. Ulick moved to answer, but Clogán stepped ahead and opened it first. Charlie looked up at the brass figure and then passed it to Ulick. "Sir?" he said. Clogán didn't move aside.
Come on, Clogán, let him in, Ulick said.
Clogán shifted just enough. Charlie entered slowly. He circled the creation once.
It's taller than I thought. It'll keep the house from sitting still, Ulick said.
Charlie nodded, though his eyes didn't leave that porcelain face. After that, Charlie's visits grew shorter. Clogán would stand between them as they spoke, and when Charlie reached toward the workbench, the creation would move a fraction closer to Ulick.
Get back now,
Ulick would say. Clogán would obey, but it would remain near. One evening, Charlie arrived and found the door closed and barred from within. He knocked twice. Clogán opened the door and stepped into the doorway.
I'm here to see Mr. Gallagher,
Charlie said. Clogán didn't move. From inside, Ulick called,
Let him pass.
Clogán stood in the threshold until Ulick himself reached the door. Charlie looked from the old man to the brass figure.
Do you know what? I can come back, he said. Sure, maybe come back tomorrow, Ulick replied.
Charlie didn't come back the next day. The house changed. Clogán drew shutters early in the evening. It bolted doors before night had fully fallen. It positioned itself between Ulick and every entrance.
Protect this house, won't you?
Ulick had said once, half in jest.
And don't let any harm come to me.
Clogán obeyed. Mrs. Donnelly from across the field called by with eggs. Clogán didn't let her inside.
Visitors are permitted, Clogán. Come on now, Ulick said.
Clogán didn't interpret it that way. It began to help without being asked. Ulick reached for a cup. Clogán lifted it first and held it steady near his mouth. Ulick reached for the stove. Clogán shifted him aside and adjusted the flame itself.
You're here to assist, Ulick said, not to replace.
Clogán tilted its head and remained at his shoulder. It followed him into every room. When he went to the privy, it stepped inside after him.
Wait outside, Clogán, Ulick said.
Clogán didn't move.
Come on now, I need privacy.
Clogán stayed still.
Clogán, come on now.
Eventually, Clogán stood 3 feet away and watched. Ulick turned his back and finished quickly. That night, he woke to find it standing beside the bed. Again.
Oh, now, stand in the corner,
Ulick said. Clogán stepped to the corner. Ulick lay down and closed his eyes, and when he opened them again hours later, it hadn't shifted an inch. The smile was unchanged. The glass eyes reflected the faintest light. Ulick tried to dismantle it once. He fetched a spanner and approached the knee joint. Clogán stepped back. Ulick moved closer. Clogán placed a hand against his chest. Not forceful, just enough.
Oh, don't worry, Ulick said. This is just it's just a bit of maintenance is all.
Clogán didn't lower his hand. Instead, with his other hand, he gripped Ulick's wrist and squeezed, ever so gently. Ulick let the spanner fall to the floor. After that, he didn't try it again. Ulick grew thinner. Meals were finished for him before he could lift the spoon. The chair was pulled into place before he could sit. When he attempted to rise on his own, a brass hand steadied him whether he wished it or not.
I can walk, he said.
Clogán walked with him step for step.
I can open the door.
Clogán opened it, then closed it before he could pass through.
I want to sit alone now tonight, Ulick said.
Clogán sat opposite him, facing him, steam venting in quiet breaths, never leaving, never more than a few feet away. Ulick stopped speaking some days. Clogán remained. The storm came without warning. Wind struck the thatch in heavy gusts. Rain lashed against the shutters. Something crashed against the side of the house. Ulick rose from his chair, gripping the armrest for balance, but Clogán stepped between him and the window.
I'm safe, Clogán, come on, Ulick said.
Wind howled down the chimney, dust fell from the rafters, and Clogán shifted its stance. Another crack sounded above them as part of the thatch lifted and fell back into place. Clogán knelt, its arms extended around Ulick, one behind his back and one across his front.
Clogán, what are you doing?
Ulick asked. The creation tightened its posture. It curved inward. Steam built within its chest and vented in steady pulses.
Come on, Clogán, I don't require your help,
Ulick said. Another gust shook the house. Clogán pulled him closer. Its brass frame arched forward. Ribs closed around Ulick.
Clogán, I'm safe,
Ulick said again, more sharply. Clogán tightened its hold. Its directive was clear: protect, help, never leave. Ulick tried to shift within the enclosure. Clogán adjusted, stabilizing him. Pressure increased.
Clogán,
he said, not in command now, but in appeal. Clogán responded by closing further, sealing him within its frame. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, brass curved and locked. Steam vented in slow, even breaths. When the wind finally eased, Clogán remained kneeling in the center of the room, arms curved inward, posture fixed. The house stood, damaged but upright. And Clogán didn't move. Days later, Charlie came by to check on Ulick after the storm, and he found the porcelain creation still in its protective shell, its porcelain smile unchanged, and inside that brass enclosure, the shape of a man, bones buckled into 100 tiny pieces from being overly constricted. 2 miles south from Ulick Gallagher's house, in a field long left undisturbed, an old raw lay in the darkening evening, a section of its inner ring missing, planks lifted for the price of a few pennies. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen and the little house went quiet again. Kate came in with 2 mugs, careful not to clink them because Betty had been jumpy all week and Kate couldn't bear to make it worse by accident. The sitting room was dim, even though it was still afternoon. The curtains were half drawn the way Betty liked them lately, as if the day outside had become too much bother. Betty sat in her chair in the corner, hands folded on her lap, staring at a spot on the carpet like it had said something to her. Kate put the mugs down on the table, then lowered herself onto the edge of the sofa.
Here you go. Strong, drop of milk, no sugar, just the way you like it. You didn't have to.
I wanted to, Betty.
You've enough going on, love.
I'm here, and that's what I'm on. Betty blinked, slow, like she had to drag herself back from wherever she had been.
You know, you'll make a saint of yourself.
Stop it now, you'll make me blush. Betty's mouth moved as if she was going to argue, and then she stopped. Kate waited. She learned that with Betty, you couldn't rush it, not if you wanted the truth. If you pressed too hard, Betty would turn it into a little joke, and you'd be back to square one. Are you cold? Kate asked.
No, I'm fine,
Betty said. Too warm, maybe?
No.
Go on, then what is it, Betty? Betty let out a quiet breath. She looked toward the fireplace, though there was no fire lit.
It's nothing.
It isn't nothing now, Betty.
It is.
Betty? That name, said plainly, did something. It made Betty's shoulders lift the smallest bit, like a child being caught. She didn't like being read.
You're always watching me, Kate.
I'm just worried about you.
You'd have me wrapped up in cotton, so you would.
If I could, I would. Betty gave a tiny shake of her head, more tired than annoyed.
I'm old. I'm supposed to be a bit, I don't know, cranky and quiet and set in me ways.
You've been quiet your whole life. This is different. Betty stared at her hands again. Her fingers were thin, her knuckles looked too prominent, like her hands were trying to become something smaller.
I've just been thinking is all.
About who?
Nothing, really.
About them, is it? Michael and John? Michael was Betty's late husband, and John was her son, Kate's late husband. Betty's eyes closed for a moment. The room held its breath around her, and Kate hated herself for noticing it.
Don't start about them now.
I'm not starting, I'm only asking. Betty opened her eyes again. They were bright, but not with tears, with effort.
I have enough people asking.
Who asked?
No one.
Betty? Betty's lips pressed together. She had that look she used to get when her son was small and trying to lie his way out of something. The look that said, keep going and I'll say something sharp. Kate softened her voice. All right, no one asked, but I'm asking now because I can see it in you. You're sitting there like you're waiting for a knock you don't want to answer. Betty's gaze flicked to the front door just for a second. Kate saw it. There?
What?
Didn't you just looked?
I didn't look.
You did. Betty's chin lifted with stubborn pride. Kate had always admired it. She also wanted to shake it sometimes.
I'm just listening for the post.
Betty, it's not time for the post.
I'm old, Kate. I lose track.
You don't lose track, not like that. Betty's fingers began to work at the edge of her cardigan, a small, repetitive motion. It was the kind of thing you did without noticing when you were trying to keep yourself steady. Have you been sleeping? Kate asked.
I've been sleeping enough.
How much is enough?
A few hours.
A few hours isn't enough.
It is when you're 93.
It isn't when you look like this, Betty. Betty finally looked at her properly, not past her, not around her, at her.
How do I look?
Kate didn't answer straight away. If she said it wrong, Betty would shut down. If she made it sound too dramatic, Betty would dismiss it. Kate chose her words carefully. I don't know, you just look bothered, properly bothered. Betty's mouth twitched.
That's a polite way of saying I look miserable.
You don't look miserable, you look frightened. Betty's face changed. The muscles tightened for a moment, then loosened again, like something in her had been caught, then let go.
Don't be ridiculous.
I'm not being ridiculous.
But I'm not frightened.
Then tell me what's going on. Betty glanced at the mugs. The tea had begun to cool. The little skin would form on top soon, and Betty would hate it. Kate waited to see if Betty would reach out, but she didn't.
You'll think I've lost it.
No, I won't.
You'll go off and you'll ring someone.
No, I won't.
You start talking about doctors and tests and...
I won't do anything until you tell me. Betty let out a quiet laugh that wasn't really a laugh.
That's the problem. Once I tell you, it goes off and it becomes something.
Well, it already is something at this point. Betty looked down again. This time her voice dropped.
I don't want to be a burden.
Kate felt a flare of heat in her chest at that word, and she kept it out of her voice. You are not a burden.
Oh, don't say it like it's easy.
It is easy. It's true. Betty's jaw worked. She looked like she was chewing on the inside of her cheek, holding something back.
My whole life I kept things to myself.
I know.
I didn't go running to people.
I know.
I didn't sit and talk about feelings.
I know, Betty.
So don't turn me into one of those women.
All I'm saying is you're someone I love and you're sitting there looking like you're carrying a stone in your mouth, Kate said. Betty didn't answer. Is it the anniversaries, Mike and John? Kate asked.
Don't go on about that now.
It's all right, you can say it. Betty's eyes drifted to the framed photo on the mantel, her husband in his work shirt, her son beside him, both of them smiling as if life was steady and long.
They're gone now.
I know.
They're gone, and that's that.
That's never just that. Betty's voice lifted, just a bit, like she couldn't help it.
It is for me.
Is it? Betty looked away. Come on, what's bothering you? Kate asked.
No, you have your own life now. Don't be worrying about me.
This is my life, Kate said, and you're in it. Betty's lip trembled, just once, then steadied.
Oh, you're so good to me.
So let me be good to you properly, not by guessing. A long pause.
Promise me something so.
What?
Will you promise me you won't look at me different?
I won't.
Promise me you won't go telling the whole parish?
I won't. Betty paused and composed herself. And then she said,
It's...
She stopped again, but this time there was no turning back. Kate could see it. Whatever it was, it had reached the edge.
It's you.
Kate gave a small, confused smile. Me? What about me? Betty's hands twisted together.
When you walk around the house, when you stand at the sink, when you bend down to pick something up.
Kate's smile faded. Betty, what are you saying? Betty didn't look away.
I see your skin.
The word hung there, simple and flat. Kate said, Everyone sees skin.
No, I mean I notice it.
Notice it how?
Your cheeks, your neck, the softness of you.
Kate laughed. Are you trying to chat me up now, Betty?
Oh, no. All I can think about is sinking my teeth into it. Your flesh.
Silence. Kate stared at her. My flesh? Are you joking?
No, I'm not.
Betty, that's not funny.
I told you it wasn't.
Kate stood up halfway, then sat back down again, as if unsure which was the right direction. You've kind of got me lost. When you say you want to take a bite, is it the way you might say it to a baby, where you could eat them up? Betty's voice lowered to a whisper.
No, I want to bite you, to chew on it for a bit.
Kate didn't move. Betty, stop now.
I can't.
Betty?
I try not to look. I try not to think about it, but when you're close to me, I have to grip the chair.
She tightened her fingers around the wooden arms as if proving the point. Kate's voice lost its softness. Betty, that's not normal. Betty gave a small, helpless nod.
I know.
So why would you say it?
Because you asked me.
It's the grief, Betty. It's the loss of Mike and John. It has to be.
No. They were the ones who started it.
They started it? How do you mean?
They said it was an accident out in the farm, but that's not entirely true.
Kate stood up. What do you mean it's not entirely true? This is beyond a joke now, Betty. What's going on?
I just took a little bite, and then I couldn't stop myself. It tasted so sweet, I just got the craving for more.
Kate's voice shook. Betty, this isn't funny.
I'm not laughing.
The room felt smaller. Betty's gaze travelled up to Kate's face slowly, taking her in.
Oh, you have such lovely cheeks.
Kate swallowed hard. Don't say that.
I don't want to be like this.
Kate's voice came out hoarse. Then don't.
But it isn't that simple.
Kate's hand slid across the wall, searching for the doorframe without looking away from her, and Betty's lips parted slightly.
Go on, just a little morsel.
Betty stood up out of her chair, legs shaking under age, and she started walking toward Kate. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen. The house went quiet again after a while, and Kate wasn't seen again after that evening. People said she must have needed space. Grief does strange things to a woman. Betty remained in her chair by the window, small and polite, hands folded neatly in her lap. She told anyone who asked that Kate had gone away for a while, and no one ever thought to question the sweet little old woman in the corner. When you wake in the morning, please like, subscribe, and leave me a small comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Those quiet words and clicks are what keep this channel going, the soft signs that let these stories return again and again, both to you and to others. Come back every night. And let this be your resting place. Good night.